Well, good morning, everybody. We're beginning a new book in the New Testament for our daily readings. It's the book of James. Now, James, or James the Just, as he's sometimes called, is a half-brother of Jesus. And we find out that he did not become a believer, a follower of Jesus, until after the resurrection. We read in the Gospels that he and his brothers and sisters were often found doubting Jesus, but he becomes a true believer. In fact, he becomes a prominent leader in the New Testament church after the resurrection, as we find out for several mentions of him in the book of Acts. Now, in James chapter 1, verse 1, James says that he is writing to Jewish believers who are probably in house churches, who have been scattered because of the Roman persecution, and they're probably not in Jerusalem, but they're probably outside of Jerusalem. And the book of James is often compared with the Old Testament book of Proverbs, in that James is very straightforward. He's very specific about wanting us to walk or talk. He wants our actions to match our beliefs. It's a very practical book. And so our reading today comes from chapter 1, and we're going to look at, actually our whole reading is 18 verses, but we're just going to look at verses 2 through 5. And because the other themes, and there are many in these first 18 verses, come up often in the rest of James too. So let's focus on verses 2 through 5. It says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he'll give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking." With all the challenges in the lives of these believers, James starts out with a rather hard but a very truthful statement. He wants to help us rethink our ideas about troubles. And now, most of us are very sure that life is best when we are trouble-free. But James reminds us that it's something that Jesus told us, that there will always be trouble. But, he says, when troubles come your way, troubles of any kind, and we know they come in many kinds and in many ways, it's not a matter of if they come our way, it's when. In fact, the J.B. Phillips paraphrase in verse 4 says it this way. It says, "Don't resent them as intruders, but welcome them as friends." Now, that's very counterintuitive. Welcome them as friends, but James tells us that troubles of all kinds and all shapes are there to test our faith. And the word for testing that's used is the same word that's used for refining gold. And that's what the process of refining gold, of course, is heating gold up to a very, very, very high level, a high temperature, so it melts out all the impurities. And the result is purer, more beautiful gold. And the same is true for our lives. In our lives, the result is endurance. The result is steadfastness, as another version puts it. But it's the process that happens over time. Endurance means we become more resilient. It means we're able to remain calm when the stresses and strains of life heat up. And it's not that the troubles stop. On the other hand, they absolutely keep coming, and sometimes it seems like the faucet is turned further open. But we become more trusting of God, who promises that if we need wisdom in solving the situations that we're involved in, God has promised to give us wisdom. All we have to do is ask for it, and God will give it. We're able to be that voice of calm assurance in the room, not because of who we are, but because we know that we seek God's wisdom. Now, James tells us that to consider this process of working through trials as an opportunity, for great joy. Now, great joy is not referring to constant happiness with the circumstances. No, James is not denying that we all go through tough stuff in our lives. But he says that if we choose joy, or as one person says, our choice is to rejoice. We know that God is in charge. And in Romans 8, God promises us that God can even take the worst stuff of life, and he can even work his good through that. It's not joy for the troubles, it's joy in the midst of the troubles, during the troubles. You see, our faith is not based upon our circumstances, but it's based upon the character of God. It's based upon God's character, it's based upon his competence, it's based upon his promises. And when we read God's word and pray, we're constantly reminding ourselves of God's greatness and of God's ability. And so today I just invite you to trust God and continue to read James with me, because I know that it's going to be a faith builder for all of us. Have an amazing day.
If these devotional videos are helpful to you, subscribe to our channel and click the notification button so you know when we post a new video. And of course, please share them with others.